I would like to request Mr. Zulkar Nain to come up on stage and deliver his presentation. Mr. Nain is the research coordinator of CQS ULab. Please welcome Mr. Nain.
Hello, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me here today, and I'm honored to be present the draft strategy paper on countering misinformation and hate speech in South Asia, which is the result of the collaborative effort between the academic institutions, fact-checking organizations, NGOs, media representative and development partners across the South Asia. And this document outlines the key framework for the sustainable and responsive This document outlines the key frameworks for the sustainable and responsive fact-checking ecosystem in South Asia. I will walk you through the major components of this draft paper. So if we look at the background, that background says the South Asian complex political, social, and digital landscape makes it particularly vulnerable to the rapid spread of the misinformation you better know, and which is that transcends the national borders and destabilizes the societies. So in this context, a well-coordinated regional approach is essential for establishing a long-term resilience against information disorder. And this strategy paper aims to lay a groundwork for cooperative efforts that address cross-border challenges posed by the misinformation. And this will build a sustainable fact-checking infrastructure and promote regional stability. Whenever developing this strategy paper, we are prioritizing two key objectives. And the first one, to build a resilient and collaborative framework that facilitates cross-border cooperation among the state and non-state actors that can leverage the strengths of governments, academic institutions, fact-checking organizations, NGOs, and media outlets. And another objective is to create a collaborative, responsive, and sustainable fact-checking ecosystem that is capable of addressing misinformation across South Asia and ensure the real-time information sharing and coordination. So most importantly, we want to divide the actors into two sections. The first one is the state actors. They should understand their responsibilities, such as government and the regional bodies can play a critical role in developing frameworks, policies, and mechanisms for counter-transitional misinformation and address the regional security challenges in digital space. And second one, the most importantly, those who are the first responder of the misinformation, the non-state actors, such as academic institutes, NGOs, fact-checking organizations, think tanks, and media. They are equally essential. And we are expecting the synergy between the state and non-state actors can create a more comprehensive and flexible fact-checking ecosystem. What will be the role of the state actors? They are the regulator. They can develop regulations that safeguard the autonomy of the non-partisan fact-checking organization and ensuring structured approach that combating misinformation without compromising their independence. They can facilitate cross-border cooperation. They can promote the formation of the regional alliances. They can collaborate through the bodies like the SAARC and BIMSTEC to address transitional misinformation challenges and foster the collaborative approach through the regional alliances and diplomatic efforts. They can establish cross-ministerial coordination through mechanism, regular meetings and workshops. And most importantly, which is very important, they should engage educational authorities to integrate digital and media literacy into school curriculum at all level, and will ensure that future generations are equipped with skills that navigate digital landscape responsibly. And even they can engage the grassroots, the initiative of the grassroots, and also they can opportunity to engage the community leaders in this ecosystem so that they can play an active role in the community and they can promote accurate information within their communities. So for now we come to the roles and responsibilities of the non-state actors. We are proposing for a formation of South Asia Regional Fact-Checking Alliance, and that will be a collaborative platform bringing together fact-checkers, media organizations, and other stakeholders from South Asian countries, and they can maintain a secretariat office, preferably in a neutral location of this region. They can support each members, then secretariat will serve as an operational hub and collaborating and the coordinating activities of this alliance. Definitely there should have a coordination between each country, so there is definitely have some coordinator roles, and they will lead the secretariat and responsible for facilitating and planning and the execution of these surface yearly activities and their crisis response mechanisms, and they will serve as a liaison between fact-checking bodies and governments and tech partners. The most important is the financial and technological support, and they will try to secure the multi-year funding from the international donors, regional organizations, and corporate sponsors. They can enhance partnerships with leading tech platforms like Meta, Google, and across their tools and response and resources. So now, what will be their year-long activities? They can collaborating on the regional studies, on the analyzing the patterns of misinformation, its impact, and ways to counter it effectively. Quarterly virtual meetings and annual in-person summit can be organized and review their progresses, and awareness campaigns are their responsibility to make the stakeholders aware. And building relation with other regional fact checkers and fact checking bodies is also important. They can prioritize building relationships with the other regional and global fact checking networks like IFCN, African Fact Checking Alliance, and EU Fact Check. And they can also participate in the international and national conference to collaborate with the cross-border research and fact checking initiative. Definitely, there should have developed an online knowledge sharing platform where members can upload their works, just like upload and exchange their and resources such as fact-checking reports, case studies, and research papers and training materials. And the most important thing for the South Asia region is developing a training and curriculum for regional fact-checking. That will be a web-based resource center focused on digital literacy, equipping media professionals, students, and civil society groups. And they can offer regular train-the-trainer workshops and allowing each country to localize their curriculum and conducting training sessions at the national and grassroots level. And how to implement the cross-border misinformation monitoring, which is more important, developing a shared database among the South Asian countries to monitor the misinformation that travels across borders. And they can integrate the AI to flag potentially harmful misinformation that is circulating on social media platforms across borders. And managing crisis periods is also essential and necessary for the fact checkers and for the community, and they can establish a regional emergency communication framework that can provide a reliable information during election, natural disasters, and public health crisis. They have a responsibility to share the real-time data and verified information with national governments, international agencies and bodies, and the public. And they can activate the rapid response teams to address misinformation spikes. Another most important thing, the prioritizing the preemptive or pre-bunking initiative that should be prioritized, and the implement media literacy campaigns that educate the public and common misinformation tactics before they become widespread. And the last one, they can support multilingual media and misinformation research, then focusing on how messages adapt across linguistic, cultural, and national boundaries. And they can encourage academic institutes and think tanks in South Asia to collaborate studies of the transnational misinformation. So looking forward to the next step, we believe by bringing together fact checkers, media organizations, civil society, and governments, this framework can create a unified front to combat misinformation, support media literacy, and ensure transparency in this digital space. This collaborative effort will contribute to long-term regional stability and build resilience against the information disorder through cross-border cooperation, real-time information sharing, and developing a region-specific framework for detecting and countering these falsehoods. So as we move forward to the plenary session, our moderator, MD Saimum Reza Talukdar, will lead this discussion on this key point raised in this draft. And we have the distinguished panel of delegates from different South Asian countries, and they will provide their insights and experts' opinion, and they will raise their questions how this strategy can be developed and how it can be effectively implemented. Thank you for listening. I encourage everyone to engage actively forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nain. And as he already welcomed all of us to the fourth session on regional strategy, I would just like to echo him. We will hear insights on how South Asian nations can come together to establish a unified strategy to address misinformation with a focus on collective research, intervention, and regional solidarity. To moderate the session, as Mr. Nain has already mentioned, may I please request Mr. Saimum Reza Talukdar, Senior Lecturer, BRAC University, Bangladesh. Along with the moderator, I'm pleased to present the panelists, Mr. Deepak Adhikari, Editor, Nepal Czech, Nepal, Mr. Ishuru Samaratunga, Research Manager, Line R Nasia, Sri Lanka, Ms. Mariam Asna Said, Advisory Member, Women in Tech, Maldives, and Mr. Apurba Jahangir, Deputy Press Secretary at Chief Advisor's Office, Bangladesh. Mr. Saimum Reza Talukdar, the floor is now yours.
Is it working? Yeah. Okay, thank you. It's the last session, and already lots of discussions happened all through the day. I would request all of you to have a bit more patience. There are some pertinent issues that our honorable, distinguished panelists have to share with us. And I'm sure we'll not frustrate you. There will be some more food for thoughts that will be popped up this session, from this session. Having said so, the theme of this session is to talk and discuss about some regional strategies. So I would like to link it up with the last discussion or presentation that what should be the role of state actors and non-state actors. And as you see that our panelists are comprised of state and non-state actors, and vice versa. So I will start with some of the pertinent questions with our panelists. So first, I would like to start with Mr. Isuru, that we have been discussing about information disorder. And as we know, there are several terms like misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. When we talk about the South Asian context, um, should we do the classification in that way, or there are some other unique types of information disorder also exist? That is the first question. And second question is, among the different types of information disorder, which one or which are the most prevalent or frequent from your perspective and from your experience? If you please enlighten us. Thank you.
Um, Good afternoon, everyone. So Learn Asia, we do research related to information disorder, especially in Asia Pacific region. So some of studies that we did recently found out there are as we discussed in the previous panels as well, the religion related, the ethnicity related, and also from our recent research, we found out that there are climate change related misinformation and disinformation also coming up. So I think those are some of issues that as a researcher of information disorder that we found. Any other comments from the panel?
Okay, so the same question I would like to pass on to Mr. Deepak Adhikari, because we know that Deepak also have been researching and doing activism on this particular area. So what are your experiences regarding these classifications and also the frequency and gravity of this kind of information disorder?
Thank you very much. I would like to thank University of Liberal Arts, Bangladesh, as well as the Asia Foundation for inviting me to this wonderful program. Regarding your question, I think these terms, misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, they are important. Like, as we all know, misinformation is simply, spreading of, false information without any intention to harm. And its subcategory is disinformation, which is an intentional, deliberate attempt to, spread false news. And the latecomer is malinformation, which is a genuine information spread in a harmful way. These three definitions are important. These are also buzzwords. But now, given the amount of problem we face, the challenges we face, I think we need to go beyond these, because always we are talking about technology. We are talking about social media companies, their algorithm changes, their feature changes. So and with the changes, you have new challenges. You need to update yourself. You need new tools. The kind of fact checking we did maybe 5 years back can no longer sustain. Now. So Claire Waddell is she's one of the pioneers in this field. So in her research for the first draft news, she has categorized mis and disinformation in 7 different types, which includes even parody, satire, which includes fabricated content, as we saw this morning in the presentation, but also, manipulated content. So the categories have only increased, and now we have AI-generated content, we have deepfakes, we have shallow fakes, and the language poses another kind of barrier, because if you don't know the language, if you don't know what people are talking about in a particular video, how do you debunk that? How do you say that it's false? At Nepal Check, we have, basically the way fact checking works is that you rate a claim, whether it's true or false. At Nepal Check, we have 5 kind of ratings, which is true, false, misleading, missing context, and half truth. Again, I see that same claim debunked by one fact checker is false, and another fact checker debunks the same claim and it's misleading. So what's going on here? Where is the standard? Why there is a confusion between whether this particular content is false or misleading? So here we are talking about intent, and it's really difficult to know someone's intent, someone's intention. So, and that's the reason now increasingly, misinformation research is drawing a lot from psychology. We have terms like inoculation theory, where like virus, a false inspiration spreads rapidly. In order to, protect yourself from misinformation or disinformation, you need to inoculate people. You need to vaccinate people against mis and disinformation with a weaker dose of misinformation. So these are the conversations going around. And also because of the way these tech giants, whom we are dependent even for funding as well as media monitoring, they keep on changing and they keep on putting us in a difficult situation. One example is CrowdTangle. CrowdTangle used to be a wonderful research tool that Meta developed, but it's no longer there. The other day I was checking a tool called InVid. I'm just talking about how these tools have no longer become effective. And the InVid is not working properly. So we are constantly battling with this new kind of falsehood, and the technology keeps on changing. So I think we are here for a greater challenge, and more we need to really gear up our tools and techniques.
Okay, thank you. We will come back to Deepak and Mr. Isru. Now I would like to move forward to Mariam and then Mr. Apurbo. So Deepak has mentioned about the social media platforms and their influences. One thing about the social media platform, we see that people are sharing their contents. It's a kind of like self-publishing, self-advertising, and most of the time, maybe without any editorial policies or maybe without any precise code of conduct and etc. But all those have certainly influencing or regulating our behavior in the offline. So regarding this context, like if we think from South Asian perspective, anything happens online, we have seen those have consequences offline as well, be it in economic sector, in political sector, or even in cultural sector. So how do you see that, like this self-publishing and self-regulating thing?
Hi. So, for this context, I think misinformation the more, information is the most big issue. We have seen during the presidential election and parliament elections that there is a wider many news on false information, and it leads to many distrust and many confusion among voters. The other area I want to highlight is cyberbullying and harassment. Because the anonymity accounts, the social media platforms provide, I mean, the function, the anonymous accounts is the bigger bigger picture behind the harassment and cyberbullying occurs in the modus. Those anonymous accounts have wider, huge followers, and they mostly spread gender hate information. And as a result, now we have, I mean, majority of the women fears, does not want to go into the political space. Now we have only female MPs in our country. That's all I want to highlight.
Okay, so we'll come back to that point. To Mr. Apurbo. So we have, in past we have met you in different capacity, but now you're also representing the state. We'll discuss that and I'll ask the same question to our other panelists, but first I would like to hear from you. When we talk about the misinformation and disinformation, and obviously the question will come how to regulate these, how we should perceive it. And here comes the state and non-state actors. Regarding the state actors, precise question is, how far the state should intervene and or how far the state should be allowed to intervene in regulating misinformation and disinformation?
Son, first of all, thank you for having me. And good afternoon to everyone who's present. So I'd like to clarify that I think this is the third month that I'm in the government, so I'm still not familiar with the bureaucracy, so just please pardon me. But to your question, how, to what extent the government should involve still now, I think, well, there is one way to look at it where you have to drive through the disinformation that you receive. If you see Facebook right now, because we've gone through such a big revolution, everybody who's living in Bangladesh can go through, like there are 100 different types of narrative that's happening right now. So how do you drive around it or drive through it? First of all, my take would be still the government should not be a fact checker, because then it loses its credibility. That's one thing, because when you turn on, if you turn on that machine, that you have a certain agency or a certain office that fact checks and publicly fact checks, as in not, because if you want to fact check in an in-house capacity, you have detective branch or NSI, you can just do that. But if you want to publicly say that this is wrong and this is right, it shouldn't come as a fact check authority, because that's, you never know where this machinery will take you. You may start it with a good intent, but then that's a window that you can discuss whether you want to open it or not. For example, the previous regime had CRI. That's something that's, we all know how it started and what went through it. So there needs to be a lot of discussion around it, that what should be the government's capacity to handle disinformation or misinformation or malinformation. But but in my personal opinion, and I don't think that this is something that the government should work with the parties that are involved in individual independent fact checkers. If they, suppose, I can give you an example. When I got appointed, 3 sources named me as Shibir Jashod anomaly, right? But I had to, and I actually went to a couple of different independent fact checkers to say that, you know what, you have to debunk this. But if I did it from a government point of view, who's to say I'm right? Right, you got my point. So I think there needs to be a discussion, an open discussion, where the government, how long will, what is the distance the government should go in terms of fact checking, but it shouldn't be, the simplest way to put it, the fact checking, it shouldn't come from a government agency or a government institution. It should come from a third party. That way both credibilities are saved.
Okay, thank you. Linked to this question, I would like to hear some quick remarks, because I have other questions to all of you. What do you think? The state should not be involved in this process, or should it be only the private sector, or do you think that there should be combination of state actors and non-state actors? If I ask you, Isru first.
Yeah, I think all the laws and regulations related to content control and also social media control and all those things come with the, when there is a dispute, who should take the power to resolve the dispute, right? I mean, so if it is, say, like through a bill or an act, a government can give that power to a selected people. For example, in the online safety bill or the act that recently passed by the Sri Lankan government, the previous government had given certain powers to a 5-people commission to take down certain content on social media. So what actually, in a real situation, or if there wasn't that act functioning, then that decision should have been taken from the court. But since we are talking about online content and something getting viral and all those things, you need to act like really fast on taking decisions and finding out who are the offenses and all those things. So that's why the government has to take certain steps to control the online content. So in that case, I think within a state, to what extent the government is going to control the freedom of expression and people's right to information and all those things, that need to be considered within a state. But can we allow only the platforms to decide what to be on their platforms or what is to be viral and all those things? That also again a question, since whether we are giving them much of like opportunities to the platform providers. So in that case, what states, since this panel is about the networking and the strategy of a regional strategy and all that, so as a region, as individual states, what we can do as a region. So for platforms, it's all about the numbers and the profit, and always they think about their clients or the customers. In this case, it is the number of social media users in each state, right? So for example, Sri Lanka has very like low number of internet users. So in that case, the negotiation power that state has to control or to give certain directions to platforms is very much less. So in that case, we need that regional strategy, the act as a group of or a block of states in the region that will give some sort of like influence or a control over platforms. So I think there are two roles that state can play. One is how do you deal with the internal laws and regulations, and in a regional perspective, how do you make a regional kind of a negotiation power which can get platforms' attention to control or to do best for the citizens in the region. Thank you.
Deepak.
Yeah, actually, I don't have much to add to the previous speakers. They have wonderfully put it on who should be the arbiter of truth. The Facebook says that we are not arbiter of truth, and it puts that, big, great job on the soldiers of fact checkers. So fact checking is only one component of, trying to tackle this, huge problem. From Nepal, we have experience of a particular law called Electronic Transaction Act, which has been misused by the government to suppress dissent, to punish the opponents. So with the government, laws are always, you have to be skeptical. As journalists, as fact checkers, your job is to hold, these powerful people to account. You fight for transparency, you fight for accountability. So I don't think, and again, like he said, these are Silicon Valley companies. These are social media companies run from the Western world, and how can you regulate these companies? Given the kind of weak governments and weak numbers, it's all about numbers. Less users you have, they are not going to care about your country. It's all about their attention, their economy, their numbers, engagement. So yeah, regulation is not something I recommend.
Mariam, you were talking about the female politicians, female presence in the cyberspace. And from the COVID experience, we know that the females and the children were like most vulnerable in online presence. Okay. So in this context, as we were discussing that who should have the control, or should it be mixed control by the state and non-state actors? What is your opinion in this regard?
I think both government and non-state actors should be working together. As ISRO mentioned, government need to work on the standards, bills, and working at the regional level. So we bodies being the highest internet penetration country, but we don't have connection with the tech companies like Sri Lanka has, like Google Sri Lanka has the connections, but we don't have the direct connection. That's all.
So we have been discussing about state and non-state actors, but let me recall the George Orwell. The big brother is watching us or is watching you. So it's not only state and non-state actors, now we have something fancy, artificial intelligence. And when it is about automated data processing or content moderation, it's a whole new genre, whole new game. So I will go to Isuru regarding the use of artificial intelligence and these models, especially the large language models that are consistently processing and analyzing and profiling our contents. And this process, analyze and dissemination of contents or regulating the contents are certainly affecting us. So in this regard, how we can rethink of regulating or dealing with misinformation when the platforms are saying that not us, rather than it's the AI model. So whom to blame or whom to make liable? Sorry for this complex question.
No, I mean, it's interesting because we all, the fact checkers, talked about like the volume of information that they have to deal with. I mean, and also not like human fact checkers can alone solve solutions. I mean, find solutions for these problems. So as the number of social media users increase and also recurring messages that we saw, the fake news coming up and all those things. So definitely we need some sort of like technology support there, no doubt about it. But the thing is that we can't let the technology to decide everything. Since there are like human factors that always incorporated in the fact checking the information that we consume. So that's something we need to think of, but thinking of like using different, say like AI tools or algorithms or that to identify flag content and all those things. I mean, definitely we have to use that, but there are a few things that we need to consider there. As you correctly ask, to whom, like, whose responsibility is that? Like, whose accountability? Who is the hold the accountability of like flagging certain content or not flagging certain content if you use algorithms and all that? So whether it's the algorithm developer or the software person should be blamed, or is it the platform that should be blamed for taking down certain content based on algorithm recommendations? And then that takes us to whole thing of like transparency. To what extent you can be transparent in your whole process when you are flagging a content, when you are taking down a content, whether the process that you have been following is transparent or not. So who should be explaining those the processes and make sure that the process that you followed is transparent and all that. Then I think the most important technical issue is that being like, how do you avoid biases? Because all the algorithms, those are trained on certain data sets, right? So the data sets are mostly, as we see in other algorithms and machine learning mechanisms and all that, what you see, that mostly the Eurocentric and that sort of data, the algorithms are based on. So in that case, whether the nuances in the region will be captured by these algorithms or not, that's a question we have to ask. And then when you are training data, then how do you incorporate the inclusivity and the diversity when you are building your algorithms? So I think those are the questions, but I'm not against the technology. It's always going to be kind of like a hybrid solution that we will have to look for. Thank you.
So I got a love letter, like we have to wrap up within a couple of minutes. But one pertinent question before we stop our panel discussion and then go for your opinion or open discussion. Last couple of years, the activists, human rights defenders in Bangladesh, we have been observing something very strange. Whenever we write something critical about government or something regarding politics, maybe our posts get only 5 likes, 10 likes. But if we write about flora, fauna, we write poetry like Shuman Bhai, within the same time, maybe we get 100 or 1,000 likes. Okay. Why is this stark difference? There is a certain word recently popped up in academia and also in this sector. We call it shadow banning. Do you think that in the name of algorithm, the tech platforms are doing shadow banning and they are simply bypassing or denying their accountability or liability? Some quick remarks from our 3 distinguished panelists, because we have to wrap it up quickly. Thank you.
Yeah, you raised an interesting question. I have heard about this term, and I think that because going by the example of India, Twitter and the government colluded in some cases, so also Facebook, like Facebook doesn't censor a politician's speech. So in a way, it's allowing politicians to go free. But I don't have any evidence, and I think there hasn't been any rigorous research on how shadow ban is working. But as you said, you can see that, in a way that some of the content or some status goes viral, and if it's about a benign stuff, and if it's critical content, it doesn't get the kind of likes and engagements that it should. So I think that may be the case, but we still have to do a lot of research and understanding of whether it's happening or not, or to what extent.
Mariam, anything on shadow banning, and also what should be the regional strategy for it?
I think Deepak has covered all.
Mr. Apurvo.
Well, I can assure you after 8th of August, shadow banning is not happening in Bangladesh. We've made sure of that. But it has happened before. I know we've discussed about it. It's something that it's like a conspiracy. But right now, so many conspiracies are coming true. I guess this is something that I won't be surprised that if it has actually happened. But if this happens, and if it happens from, say, a company like Meta or X, then first of all, you have to kind of see it like what kind of things that they're banning, and is it coming from a regional or governmental point of view, or is it coming from the company's thing? But that is something to look into. But if that actually happens, and though there is no evidence of it still, then a lot of things might come out, like what companies are thinking, what governments are thinking, and what's their policy and of freedom of speech. So that's.
Okay, so before we finally wrap up, we would like to welcome some quick questions from our honorable audience. So please, I see one hand raised.
Hello. So it's me again. Sorry. So thank you so much for the great discussion, previous session. The comment is that through the localization process of internet and social media in Bangladesh, particularly after 2013, the censorship pattern not only embedded by the state mechanism, the platforms themselves. One key factor I think we have missed the whole discussion is that what kind of self that it produced, a censored self, a self that is highly self-regulating, self-censored, fearful. Culture of fear is so high. And we are still actually in the post-traumatic condition. That's why the differences between freedom of expression and irresponsible expressions are spreading severely in this country. And the regional point is that as I've been working with social media and other companies for a long time, I have realized that the the regional non-state collaboration really has been suppressed or unfortunately guided in a particular form after 2013. Okay, previously it was Article 19, it was human rights. We have been discussing with Sri Lanka, with Nepal many times. As a social media editor, Bangladesh's largest social media company that time, Samharin blog. So that culture was emerging. Then 3 layers of suppression actually happened, and that we should look at into techno anthropological perspective as such. What happened is that first of all, suddenly many of us get access to social media without any preparation, and that total negligence from the state. How my huge population getting into this excess without any training? First. Second, a criminalization of the space. Any form of expression can be criminalized. And we have been seeing several occasions how a painter, an artist, a cartoonist, anywhere, even this conversation can be done. The last and the most vital point is that the whole populace, if you look at the abuse of ICT laws by the quote-unquote general people, is staggering. Okay, so this part we missed totally, that how a regime and the practice really criminalize its citizen towards other citizens, where nobody feel safe to other. Okay, Simon is saying something, I will have a clip and I'll just viralize it. These tendencies is also instigated by neoliberal agency called Facebook. Why I'm going to be a victim of this tendency? Because of my lack of training. It has to be a cultural social movement, and definitely a regional collaboration with different countries, cultures, and contexts, so that we could help each other, literally help each other, which would be definitely out of the state, but heavily guarded by the state, supported by the state, and always questioning the matters, because we are really in a troublesome part. And the question of AI, we shouldn't be forgetting that AI algorithm is motivated by neoliberal impetus. What I meant is that back in 2006, when the internet bubble was busting, then 2 scholars came into a big seminar like this and thinking of how to make internet money making again. Then they have introduced Web 2.0. So this interactivity now we are playing with is coming from that business model. So the platform we are using is based on this business model. So if we are not questioning the business model, the impetus, what is providing it, and the sole authority, Google, Apple, and my favorite Meta all became stateless superstate, right? So if we are not negotiating with that part from our end as a country and as a digital space, we are not going to ensuring any form of freedom of expression or responsible expression. Thank you.
Okay. Panelists, any quick remark onto that?
So, I remember a couple of months ago, remember the former information minister, Minister Arafat said, we'll negotiate with Facebook, and then if not, if they don't agree, we'll shut it down. So we've seen the worst of basically what you can do with an ICT Act, right? We've seen it. So that's where personally my fear comes from, even from a government's point of view. Like when you are promoting freedom of speech, what end of the rope should the government hold? But again, I totally agree. There should be a dialogue. but then you have to discuss freedom of speech as a concept and as a whole. So what that means is you need media literacy, and you need, and to make it to point out from a very small point of view, likes shouldn't be this addictive. That should be the personality. You shouldn't go for the likes, you should go for the content. So whenever things go viral, whenever somebody makes a thing go viral, and which is a wrong thing, it mostly happens for you want to spread disinformation or you want to go for likes and shares. So there are two different aspects to it. So
As a final thought,
yeah, yeah, please, please.
I just want to, draw attention to this particular debate in West, which is misinformation a symptom or a disease? So in society, there are pre-existing fault lines like communalism, nationalism, religious persecution. So does, social media amplify that? Because you already had the problems. So what social media companies are doing is just amplifying, So it's just a symptom, it's not a disease. And I think we need to deliberate this question as well. It's important because we may be targeting the wrong, wrong companies, the wrong kind of, because in order to have a solution, you have to really identify what the problem is. So I just want to throw this question up. Is misinformation a disease or a symptom? Thank you.
Yeah, Mariam.
I wanted some final remarks. To combat misinformation, we need to do media literacy and also teach younger kids about the digital hygiene and how we should maintain the digital footprint for the future. Because if by mistake, if we do a post and later it become viral when we are in a top position, it affects our image. That's all.
Okay. I think we can take one or two more questions. Like, can we have 5 minutes? Yeah, just to accommodate one or two questions. Let's take 2 questions and then maybe answer together. Maybe any questions? Okay. At the end.
So most of the misinformation I came across was spread with pro-governmental intentions. So do you think giving government the power of fact-checking is more like a double-edged sword? And is there a possibility of getting biased through this?
Okay, and I think we'll take the last question, if there is any. Okay, please in the front.
Thank you. I'm Shipu, and first I should clarify misinformation about myself. I'm not an Indian, I'm Bangladeshi. And my question is about, just you said that misinformation is actually amplifying. That also I felt like that algorithm is actually amplify misinformation and reach too many people. And so in the competition of fact checks and the misinformation, who wins? Fact check or the misinformation? Like, so do algorithm help fact checker or they actually amplifying again the misinformation? And about this, do you have any agenda or any plan to negotiate with algorithm, I mean Facebook and these other companies, and will they hear us, do you think? That's my question.
So 2 interesting questions. The first one is like giving the government of the responsibility or power of fact checking, is it the double-edged sword? First, let's answer this. Who will go? Okay, Isuru, maybe?
Answering the first question, I think there's no need for the government to do fact-checking. That's my personal view, because government should have other work to do and engage, and also fact-checking should be, even if I talk about the experiences in Sri Lanka, I mean, like certain fact-checking organizations were supported by governments, and the processes that those organizations followed to fact-check is like really not up to standards. So it won't work. And the other question, I think, whether the platform listen to us is always, as I said earlier, it will depend on whether how much the influence that we can put on them as states. So individual states or the countries won't be able to do any kind of influence on the platforms, but working as a region, as a bloc would help us because that would increase the number of users and also the influential power that we have. Thank you.
Okay, so Deepak.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you had to face misinformation because you wear a turban and it's another kind of stereotyping where a Sikh wearing turban is an Indian, not a Bangladeshi. So that's the beautiful example of how the societal cleavages and problems manifest in this way. With your question regarding whether fact checkers, as fact checkers, we have a huge battle against misinformation. But there is a saying attributed to Mark Twain. Probably Mark Twain had said that when falsehood travels halfway across the world, truth is tying its shoelace. So it means you can imagine, how far behind we are from the way, mis and disinformation spreads and we start fact-checking it. Fact-checking is a, post-publication exercise where something already goes viral, something already has been published, you start fact-checking. Like Ruby said in the morning, we don't know the amount of mis and disinformation that's circulating around, but we try our best. And also, with fact-checking, you have to rely on tools. You have to have solid evidence, thorough research, and you can't debunk everything, like conspiracy theories, rumors, There are so many areas that are beyond our brief. So we are trying our best. We don't think that we are going to resolve it, but we are doing our part.
Mariam?
I think both the government and other bodies need to do fact checking, and because if not the government, we need the government to take actions. The other agencies need to provide if they want to take some actions, and there is some online harassment or gender hate. So I think both parties need to work together.
And lastly, Mr. Apurbo.
Well, I think I've answered this in the first place that government should not have a say in fact checking, but what it should have is proper laws and legislation and a proper independent judiciary so that whenever you have proof that this has happened so that actions might be taken, but it should not touch the fact that it should not touch what is fact and what is not. It should, when evidence is given, it should process the evidence and then give a verdict. And that will happen if there's an independent judiciary and there's a third party fact. So there has to be three parties involved properly.
And any remark on the second question, the fact checking?
The second question is, there should be a conversation with Meta, with an X, with a Google, but we live in a capitalist society. Money talks. Disinformation has a lot of money in it, but there should be an ongoing conversation. But it should not just be from the government, it should be from the users as well. Because when it's just from the government, you don't know what the stakes are. So all parties should be involved when you're talking to a company like Meta or an X or a Google about disinformation or misinformation. It should not, because when the government just talks, you don't know what the agendas are. And we've seen it before. We've seen it the last 15 years. So that leeway has to be clear.
Okay, thank you. Last question. Okay. We respect your freedom. Am I audible? Yes, but can someone give the hands-free microphone? Sorry for the interruption.
Hi. My question is to the fact checkers here. What is the kind of support that fact checkers should be looking from the government? And when we talk about influence, yes, fact checkers are not in a position to influence tech companies, but like you said, there could be ulterior motive. But fact checkers, would you guys want to involve government in terms of sustainable funding to independent fact checkers? And because there should be sustainability, and there someone should address the elephant in the room. So is it government's job? Because these companies, till the time someone needs to support good work. Meta is doing that in some places. Google avoids it like anything. So what is that fact checkers wants from a government, and what is the best way to work around?
Okay, fact checkers.
Good question. Thank you, Rahul. I don't have an answer. Do you have one? The thing is, because fact-checking should be non-partisan, I don't go for the government's grant. Because you are trying to hold government to account, to its promises, to its statements, to its claim. So you don't want to go there. That's the territory I don't want to be in. Secondly, an unexplored area for funding is the private philanthropy. Like, we all have been dependent on these tech giants, Western donors, right? So rather than depending on the Western countries or their philanthropy for our work, why don't we look for grants locally? In Bangladesh, there are business houses. In Nepal, there are. But the idea of philanthropy is almost non-existent in our part of the world.
I would just want to add, I think I rephrased it wrong. I never wanted government. No, that's a complete no. Government cannot get into fact checking. We have one in India, PIB. We exactly know what happens. I was talking about influencing. When we talk about influence, like if they negotiate on your behalf, if the state is negotiating, no, this is my land, this is what needs to be done. These are my people, there needs to be sustainability. We need to grow these independent fact checkers. And then fact checkers regulated. That is something regulated in terms of policy, not in terms of freedom of speech.
I think, that's a good idea. I think the way to go is for the government to negotiate with these tech giants, put a clause in one of the, in law to help support the fact checkers. I think that would work well. And I think with the growing number of subscribers, although earlier I said that these big companies don't care about our countries in South Asia, but things may change, So let's be hopeful, let's be optimistic.
Okay. Although I know maybe not directly fact checkers, but to some extent we play the role of fact checking. We all do that. Any quick remark from other panelists, like regarding the last question? Okay. Thanks for your patience. Thank you, and hopefully we will discuss more in the days to come or after this final closing session. Thank you. Thank you, participants.
Kindly stay on the stage, please. Our sincere thanks to the panel moderator and the panelists. And as a token of our appreciation, Professor Shuman Rahman would like to hand over crests to the moderator and the panelists. Thank you very much, Professor. I would not follow any particular order. Mr. Deepak Adhikari. Thank you very much, Mr. Deepak Adhikari, for your time and valuable input. Mr. Ishuru Samaratunga. Thank you, Mr. Samaratunga. Ms. Mariam Asna Saeed. Thank you, Ms. Saeed. Mr. Apurbo Jahangir. Thank you, Mr. Jahangir. and Mr. Saimum Reza Talukdar. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of our day-long symposium. And to deliver a very brief closing remark, may I please invite Professor Shuman Rahman.
Thank you, Arzu. Just continuing to the last conversation and discussion between our friend Rahul and Deepak, I am surprised that their dialogues ended up so quickly. It was not some 3 years back in Oslo. I remember it went on for hours, in the midnight, 11 o'clock, and thereafter. So I agree with all your decisions because yes, of course, the government and the multinationals should work together, and definitely, I can cite an example from the field of public health. Oral saline, so a small entity which became now a household item. It's a very delicate mixture of sugar and salt with water, and it took a long time to become a household feature. Everybody worked together, the government, the donors, and now it's a household item. So in order to become a media literate, or to familiar media literacy to the households, you have to have this sort of commitment and work and time. It's not going to be solved in a day or two or in months. No. So thanks all the panelists. I would like to name all of you. First, Professor Imran, who inaugurated the sessions, and then my co-presenter Rahul, Faisal Bhai, country director of the Asia Foundation Bangladesh, Shish Haidar Chaudhuri was there, Shafiqul Alam, Professor Salimullah Khan, and Minister Advisor, Honorable Advisor Nahid Islam, and our panelists from the second panel, Ruby Dhingra, Rahul Namburi, Dravanti Ghosh, Swasti Chatterjee, Qadruddin Shishir. From the third panel, Kumar Lopez, thank you very much. Ujjwal Acharya, Sheila Taslim Haq, Mohammad Zakaria, Miraj Ahmed Chaudhuri. And the last panel now, Zulkar Nain, Deepak Adhikari, Isuru Samaratunga, Maria Masna Said, Apurva Jahangir, and our moderator Saimum Reza Talukdar. Thank you so much for having with us, and actually for your time and discussion. It's a pleasure to have uh, all of you with us, and definitely we have this plan to organize this kind of symposium in every year if we can, with newer ideas, newer development of the regional cooperation. And uh, our research report, the fuller report, will be available soon in the website that is mentioned in your research summary site, so you'll be able to access it soon. And then definitely we'll publish some research articles based on that, and we'll be in touch. So can I have a group photo together with all of the participants?
I think it's better to go in the lobby.
Lobby?
Yeah,
Sure.
because the stage isn't big enough to fit everybody in. So
we have one more crest to deliver to the person
yeah, I
in silence.
hesitated. Yes. So
Please come over.
Thank you very much.
Come over. Thank you. Let's have a photo outside in the lobby. So it's a better place.